Yes, but what I mean is you're blurry. It looks like Vaseline has been, covering your camera
That just
We don't
occasionally.
no, no,
judge, your
it's
use of Vaseline, though.
What?
see,
But
you made it weird. I was just gonna say I'm using the RuPaul's Drag Race season 1 filter, which kind of blurs everything. You had to go make it weird.
yeah, pretty much.
Eh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Stop right there. How did I make it weirder than RuPaul?
Are you saying RuPaul is weird?
I would
I'm
say
sorry, I
RuPaul
thought
is
you meant to
unconventional.
say icon. Thank you very much. Media
Well,
mogul and icon.
I got nothing against RuPaul. I'm just saying, why the hell did that end up in here?
Because the filter, you have to watch Drag Race to get it. The first
No.
season, it
First
was
season is pretty bad as far as the
the
visuals.
first season was really bad. And
Rowdy thinks
the
I just
current
got
season of
canceled.
All Stars is not much better, but oh well.
We do weird really well here. Yeah, probably true. It's a Saturday, man. For some reason, yesterday felt like a Saturday. So today feels like a Sunday, but it's really a Saturday. I'm all confused.
It,
I blame
I
Terry
agree.
because he messed with my calendar.
Yes, because I'm obviously responsible.
You are. Well, I wouldn't call you responsible. You're responsible for some things.
Culpable?
Culpable. Culpable is a good word. Culpable is a really good word. I like that. We should go with it. We should use that word more. Hello,
Add it to the
chat.
list of words to include in your next
If you
manuscript.
use that word too often, though, then you have to start introducing the word premeditated, and things get really dicey.
Now it sounds like legalese. Are we in a crime drama?
But
Are we in a crime drama?
if you plan to use the word premeditated, doesn't that make it doubly premeditated?
Isn't that just meditated? Can you pre before pre?
Can you post meditate? Maybe. I don't know. Not sure.
I meant to kill him.
After the fact, I decided it was good he died.
I don't know. Part of me's going, there are so many situations this could apply to.
Yeah, I think we basically broke logic. Yeah,
Logic.
Matt. Responsible logic. We don't have that here. It's all bad things for us. You never meditate, so I'm incapable of premeditation. Yeah, advanced premeditation. So basically, what you're telling me is there's different grades of meditation here. Premeditation in particular, but all sorts of meditation. I was not aware of that. We learn something new every day.
Clearly, we are here to not just entertain, but also educate.
Are we here to? Oh God, we're here to educate.
No.
Hey, we are not actually, figures that people should be aspiring to be. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. I've maintained that I was a terrible example for my siblings because I went and talked to strangers on the internet and got a job out of it.
We are not
Job,
role
hell, I got a
models.
career out of it.
That's pretty funny. James says, I'm pretty sure the Buddha didn't anticipate premeditation of murder. Thank you for the Simon and Garfunkel reference, Rick. I guess we should get this thing started, shouldn't we?
I guess. I mean,
Probably.
if you want to be like productive stuff.
Well, I mean, chat's here. They're being obnoxious, so it seems like a really good time to say, howdy, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Dead Robot Society. I am Paulie Cooley. Joining me, Veronica Jaguar and Terry Mixon. How the hell are you, wonderful party people?
Present.
I'm good.
Oh, so we're going to have that kind of show today.
I mean, I'm okay. I'm all right. Night.
Well, what have you been up to, V?
Let's see. Finished recording. Gosh, I'm halfway through the last book I've got to record before I go on the big summer road trip. And I was going to record today, but that did not happen because life and urgent care. So everyone is fine. Everyone has their medications that they need. But in spite of like making the appointment and having an appointment time rather than just walking in, I still had to wait an hour. And that kind of sucked.
Yes.
So the whole of going out and planning to come back and record and like get like even an hour and a half of working time in, I literally didn't get back home until like 1:30 after leaving the house at 9. So
They gave you an hour to prepare for the show. I mean, what's the problem?
I did my makeup, so I mean, there's that. So, but you know, but other than that, got words done on my solo project. That was nice. Got words done on the collaborative project. This is one of the collaborative projects. The other one, the more collaborators one has on the story, the more opportunities you have for your writing night to get completely screwed over, because people get sick, and no two people are ever sick at the same time.
Well, that's
Strange
very
how
much
that happens.
That's very much the same sort of thing with role-playing games. You schedule a night for everybody to come over and play, and the more people you have, the more opportunity for chaos.
Yes. So so there's that. But yeah, I've got, I think, a little over 2 hours to finish on this book before I leave, and so I believe between tomorrow and Monday I'll get it done. It's nice. It's easy. I can get the passable Welsh accent down, so at least I don't sound, the key being, I don't sound British, I don't sound Irish, and I don't sound Scottish, and I don't sound American. So therefore, by process of elimination,
It must be Welsh.
it has to be.
Or French, pick one.
Oh, no. You will never confuse my French with my Welsh. Ugh. So yeah, that's been my week. What about you, Terry? How are renovations going? Gone? Limbo?
Well, they came out this morning and fixed the remaining 2 tiles that needed to be replaced. So once it's inspected and the guy takes the check, it's over.
Woohoo!
It's only been since the end of January when it started. So, hey, just a breeze. 2 or 3 weeks each is what they claimed.
I was beginning to think this was going to be Schrodinger's renovation. I mean, did it really happen if it never ends?
Schrodinger's bathroom. You won't know if it's fully renovated until you open the door and step inside.
It may actually only be, July 5th, but, it's my Independence Day because I'm done with this project.
Yay!
Huzzah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, till the kitchen comes up in a couple of years.
Well, what else you been up to?
Nothing much. Doing the necessary writing, getting the things done. I got nothing beyond that.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I have been recording. I have 4 chapters left to record and master. I only have 4 on Oceania, and then I'm done. And I still won't have a cover.
That's a shit ton more than you had last week. Damn.
Yeah, I got busy. I got really busy. And I started editing Extinction again. Going to make it one more pass before I hand it off to betas. And I've got patrons signing up to be betas. Imagine that. So maybe you'll get a good crop this time. It looks like somebody joined up at the $5 or $10 level just to become a possible beta reader for Extinction. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. But I'll take the money. What's the
problem? I mean, what's the problem with that?
It's just funny. It's funny to me.
Somebody really, really wants the words.
Yeah, somebody really wants to see Extinction. I can't imagine why. So I'm getting done posting that. Posted it all out to the patrons. Probably blew up their email with all these things I posted, but shit happens. So 4 more and I'm done. But that also means I need to start recording Saculina very, very quickly. So that may be the next thing that I do starting next week, assuming I get Oceania done, is start recording Saculina. Because Oceania only has how many more weeks? 4 more weeks. And it's done. So I need to have content for the podcast. And plus I need to get to work on that book just so I can put the audiobook out. Because not having it out, if you think about it, it's hurting me financially, not having it out. So I got to get that done. And then it'll be time to get Kill Shelter done while I wait for people to go through Extinction. But I also have to write the new novel. So I have a lot of things to do here. James says, hey, I'm sure their wall covered P.E. Cooley pictures and a map have nothing to do with it. My own private stalker. Everybody needs one of those.
Do they?
Do they really?
Not really, no. So I see all this about these commoners getting crowns.
Commoners getting crowns.
Commenters.
Commenters. Okay. I like my story better.
Of course you do. I don't know what it is with the crowns, folks. I don't know what that is. Art of Darkness or goth fiction at its finest. I guess we'll figure that out in a moment. Or start to, anyway. Anyway, thank you for showing up today. As always, we appreciate it. And we should probably get to the episode.
What? We've only been jacking off. I mean, talking is what I meant.
Whoa!
Wow. What is the sound of Terry fapping? Whoa, God.
I don't know, but somebody find that mute button damn fast.
Oh man, my ear hair just curdled. That's statement.
I mean, I'm not sure how many keyboards you're now responsible for replacing. But wow.
Sorry,
I
that
was not
past
expecting that.
That slipped past my filter.
There was a Freudian slip there. Oh my God.
I started talking. I'm like, what is my mouth saying? What is my mouth saying?
That wasn't a Freudian slip. That was a Freudian, like, cannonball jump in with both feet.
Rowdy claims Terry purrs when he faps. Okay, this is disturbing. The sound of Terry fapping is the sound of a turtle. And of course, my favorite, what is the sound of one hand fapping? Same as two hands, but not quite so smug.
Depends on how much lotion you use.
Hey, God, it's not after dark. Chill out.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Slow but steady. Okay, all right. Stop that. You goofballs. What are we talking about today?
Let's see.
There was a time during the pandemic, I got sick of all the news. I got sick of all of it. And I didn't feel like I was doing anything. I didn't feel like I was doing anything for anybody. It just seemed, everything just seemed bad. So I thought, I can't be alone in this. So I came up with this strange idea to take the first 4 books of the Derelict, well, the first 3 books of the Derelict Saga, and run an episode every day of the podcast that had already run. And by that time, Trident was ready to go. So there were people who they could look forward every day to hearing the next installment of the Derelict Saga. Just like in the old days, only they got an episode every day. That made me happy because the comments I got from people were, thank you for this, thank you for doing this, that, and the other. And it made me feel better. It made me feel like I did something. And I could do something. And I think sometimes we forget that what we create, what we share, some people are going to find it very useful and very important to basically surviving or coping with everyday stuff. And even for a suspense horror writer like myself, I still get those comments from folks too, which is kind of strange. But you can help them get through the dark times by basically just doing what you do. And I think we forget that sometimes. I think we do forget that sometimes. This is not a thing about ego or anything like that. It's just basically simply creating, sharing is something. And I think it's really tough to remember that, but it's also tough for us to remember that we're creating this stuff as part of a way of getting it out, too. This is why creating art, I think, is important for the artist in dark times, because it helps them cope. You can crawl into your imagination for a little while, just like the people who are ultimately going to enjoy your art, but the creation of the art is basically in defiance of the darkness itself. And I think that's another thing we need to remember as artists. So, I can get off my soapbox. Those are my immediate thoughts.
Usually.
Those are my immediate thoughts on the topic at hand. Discuss. Okay, not all at once.
Well, back since we're talking the pandemic, going through that, I had almost the reverse experience from you. Being a full-time writer, it was like nothing changed for me. I hardly leave the house anyway. And it was a very surreal situation where everything was serious, but it seemed removed. I felt disconnected to the crisis that was taking place.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that. I was a full-time writer too, although I was doing robotics at that time as well. So I was gone from the house occasionally, well, mostly to Austin, but I spent the majority of the time in my house. And nothing really changed for me from that standpoint either, because I wasn't leaving all that much anyway. So it was kind of weird, but the pandemic hurt in other ways and everything else. Not being able to see your friends on a regular basis, not being able to do this, that, and the other, and then worrying about getting sick, especially for somebody like me whose lungs are completely fucked and have been for decades. And I know I keep fucking them up. It's a bad thing. Anyway, there was a lot of angst about that, but getting past it was by using the Derelict Saga and other podcasts that I was putting out. That was my strategy for dealing with it, and it finally worked. Finally got me off my ass. Matt says I'm a developer. It was like I spent my whole life training for the COVID lockdown.
Yeah, so I'm the only one here who had teenagers at home during the COVID year. And that was, so at that time I had a 6th grader, a 9th grader, so first year of high school, and a 12th grader, senior year of high school. So my oldest, his senior year was all online thanks to COVID. They could have gone to school in person for that last, well, hang on, wait. So essentially spring break, they said, just take everything you need because we might be closed for a few days. And so it shut down. Schools shut down the second week of March 2020, and they didn't reopen until the 2020-2021 school year. So for that last handful of months, everybody was like trying to figure out how to go to school at home. Fortunate, because since my husband does IT, we had, fast internet connections. Each of the kids had their own, either laptop or tablet where they could work. And they are decent at staying on task. They've gotten better as they've gotten older, obviously. But part of my challenge was I was used to working at home all day by myself. I didn't have that. And then on top of that, I had to teach, not to minimize, stuff, but I had to teach others how to act when I had quote unquote working hours.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were certain things, like if you work from home, yeah, you can do little things, but don't come ask me at lunchtime, hey, Mom, can you make lunch? I'm sorry, you know exactly where everything is. If I wasn't here, you'd be feeding yourself. Why is it any different? So it was a lot of like setting boundaries and figuring out what to do. But when it was time for me to actually work and create stuff, I was exhausted. Because how am I supposed to get into things and create when I can't like switch that role over? And when school started back up that fall, one kid had gone to college, but the other two were still at home, and we kept them home because the whole getting sick thing. We were the point kids for my husband's parents.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, do you want to go to school or do you want to be able to go see grandma and grandpa? Yeah. So it was figuring out routines that would work, but my routine as a narrator and a writer, that was the last thing to get fixed. And it was like, well, now I'm exhausted. What do I do? I can't create. And I had to figure out, okay, so when am I productive? When can I do stuff? And when do I go, you know what? This is just going to be good enough. There are plenty of folks who are struggling. No one is expecting 100% pre-COVID output. So just do the best you can and figure out how to get through stuff. So, and yes, Matt. At the time, I had 3 teenagers during COVID. Currently, I've got 2 older teenagers. So I have a 16-year-old, a 19-year-old, and then my oldest has left the house and is 22. Hang on. I have to think about it.
Mama don't remember when the boy was born?
No, I remember. I've just got to do the math before after. He's 22. He'll be 23 later this year.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but it's when I think it's harder when it's like a long-term crisis or it's a long-term change, because you don't know if things are going to get back to quote unquote normal. And you don't know what the new normal looks like. And
yeah, I was going to say,
enough.
it's never going to go back to normal. It just stabilizes into whatever the new normal is, which can suck.
And if you're the sort of person who, by virtue of what you've done in the past, or how you were raised, or how you have to function, you minimize your stress. Or you kind of shove it to the side. It's like, that's not stress. No, you're fine. And then it builds, and it builds, and it builds. And it starts eroding on your creativity.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then you realize, oh, I got nothing. Crap. What do I do?
See, people like Terry were lucky in some ways because they weren't interrupted. Life didn't change.
Yeah. But there are other things. And it's not.
James says, the pandemic forced me to liquidate my language school that I had just made successful after 8 years of effort, so I'm still not past it. Ow. Oof. I'm sorry to hear that, man. You have settled into your new abnormal. No, the new abnormal. No, not going to survive it. Past the pandemic, there's another part of that is sometimes you're dealing with personal grief. You're dealing with some not so nice things going on in your personal life, or the people that you love and everything else. And it shouldn't feel like treason to find the happy moments in what you do. You need to give yourself permission to create and enjoy life even while some of those things are going on. And it's very, very, very difficult to remember. I've spent the last 2 years dealing with, well, 2.5 years, dealing with all sorts of medical issues and everything else for my parents, and things have gotten pretty scary at times. And yet I was still writing, I was still doing this because I had to do something else to keep my mind occupied. Otherwise, it was just going to sit in the corner and stare at a wall. And that doesn't help anybody, least of all me. So finding the space to also go in that direction, to try and find those moments, because you need those too. You're human. You need some time to actually disconnect, whether it's playing video games or writing or reading or whatever it is. You got to do it sometimes. You just have to do it.
Yeah. And you shouldn't feel guilty about what you choose to do to decompress, as long as it is done with consent and doesn't hurt anyone. Caveats. I don't know what these people do in their spare time. I just want to throw that caveat in.
Considering they're our listeners, do you really want to know?
You know,
No, but that's
we are the ones that give out the things that make them use brain bleach. We don't need to get back any of that.
Terry wants this one way.
For all they know, it's going to go in a book.
For all they know, it was already in a book.
Yeah.
James says treason requires dumping good tea into the ocean.
Harbor. You're talking about the harbor.
And Rowdy says, how do you know it was good tea?
How do you know King George sent the colonies good tea? And James' response is, there is no bad tea.
Oh, that is completely incorrect.
I beg to differ. There is.
V will even admit there's coffee she won't drink, so, you know.
There's a lot of coffee I won't drink. There's a lot of tea I won't drink. I mean, ugh.
Well, the Brits have obviously, the Brits and the Welshmen have obviously spoken out now, so we know all about this. Out in the yard, not too far from the car. Thank you, Rick.
I think it's important to know that it's not a bad thing to disconnect, and on days when you feel like you're overwhelmed, or you've had a rough patch, or you've been the support person for people who are going through a lot. The whole put your own oxygen mask on before you help others. That lovely analogy.
Yeah.
Some people use oxygen masks. Terry just huffs cats. I mean, do what you need to do. Yeah.
Wow. For the listeners, one of Terry's cats just smacked another cat.
Yes.
One he's holding.
Sweet, grumpy little old lady just smacked Julius in the face and walked off. And I kind of feel her energy in my soul. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the Boston Tea Party. Hello, Antoine.
Don't feel guilty about having to step back and find a way to recharge. It could be the trashiest, most indulgent novel ever that you would not admit you read to anyone. And as long as they don't share your, library card or your KU subscription, they'll never know. Have fun, indulge, read your naughty little stories.
We should talk about what steps people can do to try and separate themselves from the dark times and reconnect to their creativity. Because a lot of people, I remember seeing a lot on Facebook and other places about people that just had their creative juices just dried up. They had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Real world events sapped them of their creativity. And so there are ways that you can try and reset yourself.
I know this is kind of like woo-woo, fluffy sort of stuff. But, so this is Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. It is a spiritual path to higher creativity. You do not have to subscribe to a Judeo-Christian mindset to follow it. It winds up being more of a universalist kind of thing. But it is a kind of a structured guide for journaling. And there are baby steps to learn how to reconnect with your creative self. And that's like taking a walk, figuring out an artist date. And like what I like to do, I go wander. I will go into the junkiest looking thrift store for 10 minutes, 20 minutes and wander. Am I going to buy anything? Probably not. But it's fun to see what's there. And it's just see all the bizarre, weird stuff that's in there. And yes, James, it is the journal book. This is if you've ever heard of morning pages. The idea that you sit down and you stream of consciousness, just fill up 3 pages, which is great for ideas. Because the first page is usually the getting over the, I don't want to write. This is stupid. Why am I journaling? Et cetera, et cetera. But by the second or third page, you start to explore other ideas. Now, the caveat to this, I don't do this anymore. And I realized after a couple of years, I personally need more structured journaling. I need like a prompt, or I'm going to write about this story idea, or I'm going to play with these characters. No, James, I said wander, not launder. Clearly, I need to enunciate more.
Enunciation.
He's Welsh. They don't understand English.
That's James isn't Welsh.
Oh, James said that. Sorry, I thought Matt said
oh my
it.
God.
Damn.
You're going to start a war in Europe.
You're probably
like this.
right.
Goodness.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
You probably already fired that shot.
Yeah. Anyway, but if you are prone to rumination, if you're prone to negative self-talk, that might not be a good thing for you. Because I know for me, when I had really bad days, it turned into pages of should, would, I need to do this, I need to do that. Stuff never got done. And it wasn't as constructive as it could be. Mm-hmm. So that's just that's my caveat on that. I know how what words I say good, how my brain works.
Words good.
So, but
Hugs
that is
good.
one way to do it. And it can be just having a way to reset, to disconnect from where you usually are for a half hour. And for God's sake, stop like doom scrolling.
I was gonna say the best strategy: stay the fuck off of social media and don't doom scroll, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
it's bad for your health. Don't do it.
Yeah, have something in place. Like if there is a need to go look at something, build yourself a happy playlist and go look at that. Build yourself, playlist on YouTube of happy things. So, journal style books. How many people here have read Atomic Habits? Atomic Habits is good.
Obviously, B has read it.
Yeah, it's good. It's not like super beginnery, but if you're used to reading those kinds of habit building psychology books, it repeats some stuff. But it's okay. It's a good start.
Confused and prone to launder.
That's for those of us who are hanging around the house and we're like, I don't know what to do. I'll just clean.
Matt says it can take a while to bounce back from some things. I had a setback and found a lot of things very difficult afterwards. And I even had to change my coping mechanisms. There is an unhappy truth with certain medical conditions where the medicine that you're using stops working. And it stops working not gradually. Sometimes it just comes to a screeching halt. When that happens, it's usually bad because it means you've got to start another medication. You have to get off that medication. You have to go through the transition period of doing all of that bullshit. And then in some cases, that new medication may not work the way the old medication worked. And so you go on a discovery of pharmacology, which is always wonderful. The reason I'm talking about this in that way is that the metaphor is that basically at some point those coping mechanisms for whatever reason do stop working, and you do have to find new ones. Your routine gets upended by having a bunch of teenagers in the house that are usually gone while you're working. You have to change your coping mechanisms. You have to change how you do things. We get a new dog. Paul has to change his routine to incorporate the new dog. And then Paul gets a new cat and has to change his anger threshold so he doesn't kill it. So they're basically having to find new ways to do things when the old ones don't work. And that's something you got to...
Terry gets a 6-month bathroom renovation adventure.
Yeah, it's shit like that. It's just basically you have to change what you're doing, and you can't necessarily cling to those old habits. If they stop working, for God's sake, try something new. Mm-hmm. Try something different. That's the way I would handle it.
And being aware of those habits, because sometimes you can have a coping mechanism that is good in moderation, but if you keep leaning on it, it can become destructive and problematic.
It becomes addictive.
It becomes addictive, and then it's no longer healthy. So that is, again, speaking from experience, it's not cool. And it's you have to be aware. It all of this requires a lot of metacognition, just knowing how you react, being aware of how you cope with things, how you think, how you have to be willing to honestly check in with yourself, which you should be doing as an artist, because if your mental health gets wonky, then your creativity gets wonky, and that way lies no words.
Yeah, I agree with that. Terry, you've been strangely quiet over there.
I've been listening. I often don't run into these sort of things, so it's not like I've got a lot to commit to on this.
Yeah, this is true. You're kind of in a vacuum chamber.
One of the things that I've discovered about myself as a creative is that a lot of people see things like writing as art. And I don't see myself as an artist. I see myself as a craftsperson. I'm the workaday writer. I sit down, I write the words, and then I go on about the other things that I need to do. It's sometimes hard for me to grasp some of the conflicts and troubles other people are having, because I'm not connected to a muse, if you will. I'm just plugging away at it, doing it like a carpenter, doing it like a plumber. It's making the magic happen. But I don't see it as magic. And so sometimes that leaves me a little divorced from some of the problems that other creatives are having.
Yeah, I don't like to see it as magic either. I disagree with the concept of you not being an artist, though. That's absolute horseshit. Regardless of your attitude toward it, you are an artist. The problem is you've come to associate artists with pretentious people.
I don't even know that it's that. It's just that I hear people, I don't want to say whining, but there's a lot of whining that goes on about how some external thing is not feeding their creativity. And I have very little sympathy for that, because it's not a muse that's feeding your creativity. It's not some external factor that's feeding your creativity. It is you doing the steps necessary to do whatever you do to energize your own creativity and to funnel your own energies into it. And my worldview on it just seems at odds with so many people's.
Well, okay, so one, I agree with you. And part of this comes from my having worked with Misty for, God, almost 2 decades. Oh my Lord. That feels really weird. I'm not that old. I don't want to be that old. Because one of the things that she first says, there's no muse. Button, chair, hands on keys. Mm-hmm. And you just keep going. some days the words may suck more than others because you're tired or because you're not on track or the words aren't coming as quickly. But I totally agree. There's not necessarily a muse there. Sometimes you're really connected to the ideas that you're putting down, and sometimes you're kind of plodding along, doing the best you can, knowing, well, I got to get the words down. You can't edit a blank page.
Someone once told me, and I found this to be true, that if you go back and look at a book that you've written, you can't tell which days you were having trouble or which days were flying like they were the best day ever. The end product does not reflect how your experience was in creating it.
Okay.
I often wonder about that, though, because there are times where you come across a book and there's like multiple rough patches and then there's multiple genius patches, and you wonder where the writer was at what they were doing at the time that made the difference between those two things.
That may not be the difference between a good day and a bad day. That may be a difference between being utterly distracted by real life and crises that you're having to deal with. I'm not talking about, the world is ending, your house is on fire, your car is wrecked. People can have really bad days, and that's going to affect their end product. But I'm saying that just in the general flow of creative work, if you write a chapter and you go back and read that chapter 6 months later, you will have no idea whether you were having a great day or a terrible day as a writer that day. No way at all to know.
Not unless you're keeping a writing journal.
Not unless you keep a writing journal.
True.
Well, why would you do that to yourself, V?
I don't.
You don't keep a writing journal?
No.
I figured you were OCD enough to do that. That is a
Medication's
special.
wonderful.
It's a special kind of self-harm.
Granted, I like sometimes, because I like numbers, sometimes I would note like how many words I wrote, and I would write it down, but I'm like, it's just for me. I don't care. As long as like on days when I know that I'm writing, I try to commit to time on task. And some days I'm able to sit down for a full hour before I start recording. And I lock in and I can get 1,000 words done in an hour because stuff is moving, and that's great. Other days, it's a bit of a struggle, but I know that I've committed to sitting there for an hour. And so maybe it's 500 words. But generally, if I sit down for at least 10 minutes, I will get into the flow of stuff. And then the hour's up.
Starting is the hardest part.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree.
If you can sit down and you can start, you're going to finish something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when
you find yourself wandering around the house doing chores so that you don't have to start, there's a problem.
Yeah. And sometimes it's having that reward there. It's like, look, all I have to do is sit here and work on this chapter for an hour. After that, I'm going to go do this. Or, have like benchmarks, body double, something like that. And that can be super helpful. But I think on certain days when I don't want to say like you don't feel it, but it's again with the woo-woo talk, your soul is just not all there.
You don't feel inspired.
No, I don't want to use inspired because you're not necessarily inspired to write. You just have to get your characters from point A to point B for that session that day. But if your mind keeps wandering and something else is looming, it is okay to take a mulligan for that day and find something to tide you over until the next, writing moment or the next creative moment. I have to do it for writing. I have to do it for narration, because if I can't get this into the narration thing, you will hear it in my voice. I'm a good actor, But if I'm having a shitty day, there's not that what I narrate isn't awesome, but it has to be a really good story to totally pull me out and let me completely disconnect and play. Some days I can't.
Rick, points for the Tom Petty reference.
I welcome Tom Petty references. I mean,
Running down the dream.
Yeah, the effort to start writing or continue is the hardest part. I think most of us, when we start writing, find it hard to stop. I need to get like 150, 200 words, and then I'm off. Sometimes less than that. Sometimes all it takes is 50, and that drops me back into the story, and I'm off. But there are times when I can't do that. I've got so much shit to do. I only get like 15, 20 minutes to write. So I pull out my book, my little notebook, and I'll write down ideas or jot down other things while I'm waiting, for the car to get done or for my father to finish a therapy session or whatever else. So I may not be writing exactly, but I am putting down all the ideas. And then, half the time when I got back home, after I took a nap from all the stress, I would go ahead and sit down at the computer and crank through it, or crank through it the next morning. And because I had all those ideas and everything else already written down, all I had to do is put things together. And that was very easy for me to do. So that was another of my coping mechanisms, that I've been doing for a while is I need something to do when I'm waiting for people to do whatever it is they do. I need to read or I need to write. Doom scrolling is not an option, because that way lies madness.
Yeah. I wound up finding all of these different books on productivity and artistry and all that psychology business stuff that I personally really like reading, but I sit and read and take notes because I'll read too fast otherwise. And so when I'm sitting and waiting someplace, open up, get the notebook, and I'm sitting there taking notes. And I've had people go, "Oh, what are you studying?" This. Why? Because I want to. You get the weirdest looks when you tell people that you're reading nonfiction for fun. Really weird looks.
I know people who won't read fiction. All they read is nonfiction, which is mind-blowing to me. But there are those folks out there. They would rather read a history book than any kind of fiction at all.
Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
Sometimes. Doom scrolling is always an option. It's just a bad one. Yeah, it's not an option for me. Let's put it that way. Doom scrolling professional here. Rowdy.
Oh, goodness.
Rick says, I started doom scrolling around March 2020 and was very distracted, but managed to pull myself out of that by June. Yeah. Social media is such a bane on existence. So are news apps.
Yes.
I think we're all happier when we were ignorant.
Well, and that's the thing. Sometimes you just uninstall them.
Yeah.
I don't have Facebook on my phone. I took it off a while ago, and it helps a lot. And I don't have news apps on my phone. So if I'm picking up my phone to mess with something, I'm probably like playing Pokemon or Sudoku. And do I look ridiculous sitting someplace waiting, trying to catch non-existent creatures? Absolutely. But it's better for my mental health.
There is that.
There is.
There is that. Your fave doom scrolling is the Russia-Ukraine war. Because of certain reasons, I have to doom scroll the NFL. And I have to doom scroll baseball. I'm not going to get into why that is, but there are reasons. I have to do that. But I don't sit there, I look at it, I don't obsess over it. I'm just basically trying to get an idea of what happened so I can talk about it on Sundays. So there you go.
Yeah.
Matt says, I took anything with notifications off my phone except for specific contacts. It was the best thing I ever did. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I get notifications on Signal chats, but only that only that it happened. And from Mastodon, I don't have Blue Sky on my phone. I don't have Facebook on my phone. I don't have any of that crap active. And I only accept messages from known contacts, which really pisses off some people who are trying to contact me. So yeah, I think our phones are one of the biggest sources of angst that we could possibly deal with, and that's why I try and not use it. My phone is usually playing music or podcasts these days, and that's a good place for it because it means I'm doing shit.
Yeah, I get the weird thing of, so people are like, well, why didn't you have your phone? I left it in the other room. It doesn't come into the studio with me, and I have a Fitbit, but I'll mute those notifications because it's distracting as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so, why did you get back to me? Was it an emergency? No. All right then. If the outcome will be the same in 20 minutes, then
what's the point? I have to keep my phone on and not silent for various reasons. But it annoys me when I do get those notifications, or I get a text bing bong when I'm and it's nothing when I'm recording. That drives me nuts.
Same.
James says I'm old enough, metal enough to hear Mastodon and think of the metal band.
It's a deep cut.
Matt says it made my phone a tool again, not a master that was constantly clamoring for attention. If I wanted something meaty that destroys my time, I'd have invested in cats. Very nice. I like that. You know, this is the first time in a long time that Live channel has been bereft of content. The hell's up with that?
Are you planning to fix that?
No, not at the moment.
Because I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing either. Your guitar teacher used to play with them on occasion? That's cool.
Oh, Mastodon, cool. Not cats. Okay.
Yeah, Mastodon, not cats.
Well.
So what are some of y'all's coping mechanisms?
Healthy coping mechanisms.
I drink a lot.
Or not, really non-destructive coping mechanisms.
What's destructive about drinking that much? The liver can only run away so far before you grab it and put it back in.
If it's grown feet, I think you have some issues.
Are you kidding? My liver made a call to, the cops to try and get me to stop. It tried to file a restraining order to keep me from drinking in college. My liver called me one morning. Well, it was one of my friends pretending to be my liver, but still. Break down and cry. Whiskey, chocolate.
So, to be fair, there is something to be said for straight up saying, I cannot deal with this anymore, and having a good old-fashioned breakdown. It is better than keeping it in. And because if you keep everything pent up, it's not good for you physically. So having some coping mechanism that allows for that adrenaline release, and sometimes, honestly, it's just screaming into a pillow until you cry. Or going outside and screaming and scaring your neighbors.
Shriek into the void, stare into the abyss.
And let us know if it yells back.
I saw a great meme on Mastodon the other day. It said, once again, let us get this straight. You scream into the void, you stare into the abyss. Do not scream into the abyss. We are not insured for that. I was like, what the fuck?
I mean...
Matt says, writing is one of the things I do to get ideas out of my head. I find I get ideas I need to work through, and writing them down is the only thing that gets rid of them sometimes. Hence, never publishing. I get to write only for me when I want to. Yep, I get it. I get that completely. I write some things that have no intention. I have no intention of ever publishing. It's just basically getting my fury out on the page. And Ratty says I cope by doing terrible things to my characters.
There is
Simpatico. You and me. Simpatico.
There is that.
Even horror writers have a soul, goddammit.
Yes, they keep it in a jar on their desk.
If you're lucky. There's a sickness in your heart.
So, and yes, this is one of my coping mechanisms because certain crafts that you do, you cannot think about anything. Literally, it turns part of your brain off. So if you need something that lets you like listen and focus, I know it sounds dumb, but as someone who deals with neurochemicals on a daily basis and has for a long time, this is one of the few things that actually calms my brain down because it is grossly repetitive and you have to count. And so it could be crochet, it could be knitting, it could be needlepoint. It could be like the whole diamond dots things, which are like paint by number, except with tiny little shiny pieces of plastic, which can be fun. It can be coloring books. Anything that just gets you to sometimes sit down or pull your focus on one manual thing. I joke. I don't really joke. One of the things I would have loved to do is figure out a way to set up like a bigger woodworking spot here at the house. Because one of the things that my husband will do when he has like a bunch of time, he learned how to do woodworking because his dad did it for a job for 50, 60 years. And so we have all those tools. And he made me my first computer desk. He's made a Lego table that has like casters and storage things for like 18 different bunches of Legos. It's enormous. He's made shelving. He's had fun doing it because what does he get to do? Gets to go in the garage, turn up the music, and play with wood and power tools. You do what turns your brain off.
James says anyone who crochets mad scarves like V does not have OCD.
Fun fact, OCD and anxiety are in the same grouping and are treated by the same types of medications. It's just based on the dosage.
Matt says, I lost several years worth of short stories, and the end result was, oh well, and I got myself a coffee. Fuck you. I lost years of that, and that was bad. Matt says, I found it very similar when I was learning to play Go. It required so much concentration and effort that everything else had to go hang. It was great for blocking everyone else out. Everything else out.
Ooh.
Why did I call it? I wanted you to make sure that you didn't think I was ignoring you, James. That's why I called you out.
That's not why he called you out. He called you out because he just felt like it. Because he's that kind of guy.
Yeah, something like that. Well, it's happened again. You've wasted a perfectly good hour of your time hanging out with us and listening to us babble. And, while we appreciate that, you should really find a new coping mechanism. Anyway, if you have a question or comment about this show, you can visit deadrobotssociety.com, punch that contact button, and send us an email. Or you can leave a comment on this YouTube episode, which is, obviously, today is whatever it is.
July 5th, 2025.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. If you want to join our community, you can find our Discord server link in the show notes. We'd love to have you. Come hang out with all these lunatics. And if you want to support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/DRS podcast and buymeacoffee.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive live shows like the one that is coming up in 11 minutes. And at the $10 level, you get your name read. And our $10 patrons are Juan Valentin, James Terrell, Antoine Batts, Tony L. Joy, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, and Tim Niederreiter. Thank you to all of our patrons for making this show possible and allowing us to pay our StreamYard bills. We appreciate it. With that, keep writing. Keep creating art. Dare to be courageous enough to create art. I don't know if somebody said that before, but they probably did. But do that. It's important.
Do that thing.
Do that thing. Trust me, people appreciate it. Go create the art. Go do it. All right, with that, we are going to get out of here. Patrons, we'll see you in a few minutes. And everybody have a great Saturday, rest of your Saturday and your weekend. And we will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.